For round 3 we have another die roll 1 and a hand that you don't have to mulligan, but it's some of the weaker cards in our deck. So I'm happy to finally have a hand that we can keep, and we even draw one of our token makers. So it's a pretty nice draw. We're looking at the Celestia Mirror here, and these make for some interesting games. Now let's just see how this develops. We can use our Centaur to deal some damage. I'm not blocking here with my 2/4 because his attack screams that he probably has Calm Bond or something similar. So I want to take some tempo out of the game and try to answer his pump spells with my tricks. But all of this changes when he drops Growth of the Guardian, because it's really hard for my deck to do anything about it. He even has some birds, so after he finds his 6th land, the Guardian is active. And I'm here with 7 lands, but no way to cast Hornculler's Chant. Aerial Predation doesn't have a good target, he only has these birds. So overall things aren't looking too good. I stay alive by blocking the Elemental with Celestia Sentry and regenerating, arresting the Elemental. And then he plays the Calm Bond that I suspected he had from the beginning, and that gives me a nicer target to Aerial Predation here. However, things are still looking badly, and it might be, let me pause once again, it might be because I allowed my Towering Indrik to die at a moment where flyers weren't important, but now he has a 2/2 flyer beating me down. I bring him down to 8, so things aren't looking too bad, given that my hand is another 2 3/3s, and if I draw a land, 2 4/4s. But as we'll see, he has a slightly better draw step himself in Vidugazi Guildmage, and what that means is that he's going to start copying 8/8s, and I do attack here with all my creatures to bring him rather low, and he manages to populate his Elemental, goes down to 5, but well, even though I survived this turn, no, I would have survived this turn, he then would have been able to make another 2 8/8s. So this game was basically lost. I was just looking what I would draw. But he also had Chorus of Might on his Elemental, and that was game. So you already know that I have to win the next 2 games to win the round. And this hand on the play is pushing it. It has some lands, but I have basically 0 life spells here. The first thing I can do is make 2 1/1s, and before that all of these don't do anything. However, I believe I keep this simply because any token maker I draw makes my hand really powerful, and somehow I think that's better than going down further. Now he has the aggressive start this time, which I didn't really expect here. Draw an Arrest, which is not great once as long as he has the Apparition. So my first play is actually on turn 4, Ice in the Skies, and now things get interesting. I drop a 5th land, and now I have defenses, Calm Bond, Sundering Growth, Druid's Deliverance all up, and what happens is that he attacks with a couple of his creatures. I prevent all damage that would be dealt to me, make another bird, and then I use Rootborn Defenses to make another bird, and all my birds indestructible until end of turn. That allows me to block both Keening Apparition and Selesnya Sentry, such that they would both die. Now, this block is bad if he has a comm bond himself, but I didn't see a block to play around that. So I'm trying to get his two best creatures at this point. He has a Giant Growth to save the Apparition, but the Sentry dies and he drops a Growing Ranks. Now, this would be a problem, but I had the Sundering Growth in my hand from the beginning, and he actually gave me a target, and a good one. So I just untap, Sundering Growth, his enchantment, get another bird, and the way this board is looking, I can just drop Loxodon Smiter and get in 4 damage. So still waiting on the comm bond as a nice trick. The game isn't over because he also drops some centaurs. However, with comm bond in hand, I feel pretty safe here. And this is the turn where he attacks because he's forced to do something against my flyers. And I'm sitting there with a comm bond to respond. So what I do is just block his creatures such that both of mine would survive. And he has a Giant Growth on Keening Apparition, which I can't do much about. But then also comm bonds his Centaur, which means that I can comm bond my Loxodon Smiter, my 6/6 beating his 5/5, and I'm untapping with a 6/6 basically. Going down to 9, but he's on 13, and I just swing for, 10, drop another blocker. He can't kill me with the card he drew, and we won the game. So, last but not least, we have the final game of round 3, and a hand that's quite similar to the last one. We have Slime Molding, which does make a token, but it's rather bad. However, I don't think you mulligan such a hand on the draw. And this game is difficult because we have to face a Vitu-Ghazi Guild Mage right from the start, so things aren't looking too well until we draw the Arrest to stop the Guild Mage. However, he already shows us that he has Growth of the Guardian. Now, I need to use my combat tricks defensively here, and I try to block Selesnya Sentry with Concordia Pegasus here. And I figured I would just cast my Swift Justice, and if he has like a Giant Growth or a Comm Bond, I can just Giant Growth and dominate his tricks, getting a nice trade there. However, he does have the +4/+4 Chorus of Might, and 7/6 is exactly enough so that Giant Growth plus Swift Justice plus Pegasus is not enough. So he 2-for-1s me here, and I take some damage, and my Pegasus dies. So things aren't looking too well. A second Druid's Deliverance is also not what I really want, but it means that I need to make a 3/3 ooze. A 4/4 would be much better. 2 4/4s are able to block an 8/8, and having a 4/4 against Selesnya is just so much better than a 3/3. So he plays it rather defensively here. Don't know why he didn't offer the trade. I couldn't have taken it. So I get to untap with Sundering Growth and 2 Druid's Deliverance. And of course I attack here because with my hand I want him to attack with his smaller creatures, and thankfully he does exactly that. So I attacked him down to 17, and both of his smaller creatures then attacked back. Also Selesnya Sentry, but that was to be expected. So what I can do here is just Druid's Deliverance twice, getting 2 3/3s. And then I have the choice to block both sellers or a seller and a Selesnya Sentry. However, I can still trade with Selesnya Sentry later, so, and I won't take any damage this turn anyway, so I try to get the most value here. He then combos his Seller of Songbirds, and finally I can use my Giant Growth to deny his combat trick. So once this combat step is over, I haven't taken any damage. He has 2 less sellers and a comm bond, and I have 9 power on the board, so things are looking fine. I decide to just bring him down to 8. I know that I don't want to play the long game against Grove of the Guardian, and if he attacks me back, it's likely that I can attack again, which makes any pump spells I draw much better as well. So sadly, he does have some more defensive cards here and starts beating down. We draw some lands and keep the pressure on, which is important because it forces him to chump block. But a Centaur Healer brings him up to 8, and a Drudge Beetle is another nice card. However, we've drawn Rootborn Defenses, and I think it's pretty clear that this was a very important draw step. We drew, I think, 2 or 3 lands, but exactly in the moment we need it, we are able to attack with our creatures again, which doesn't look suspicious because it's what we have to do, basically. And we get to populate, which is basically like getting 2 3/3s at instant speed. And now he's at 5 and still beating down, and he finds the 6th land for the 8/8. Now at this point I'm thinking I tried my best to beat him before his 8/8 becomes gets online, but here it is and I'm probably losing. I decide to play this defensively because if I'm lucky he isn't able to attack with his 8/8 into my 12 power creatures, and I'm basically content to lose to his flyers when I draw Concordia Pegasus and Towering Indrik in a row, which means that his flyers are actually being stopped right now. So I draw some of my tricks, and the board is relatively stable until he draws some more birds, makes some more birds with Ice in the Skies, and gets another 8/8. However, if you look at my spells, I can just prevent all damage to me, and I can make all my creatures indestructible, and I get a 3/3 out of the deal as well. So what happens here is that I prevent the damage to me, and I think I've done that before. Once I played Druid's Deliverance and then Rootborn Defenses against him. This time I decide that because I'm preventing all damage to me, I can wait with this for another turn. So preventing all damage to me allows me to just kill 2 of his birds, get another Centaur, and take no damage. So that the blowout of Rootborn Defenses has another turn. I could have played both spells, but I wouldn't have killed many more creatures, and I would have potentially taken damage the next turn. So now when he goes to attack again with his 8/8s, I cast Rootborn Defenses, block both of his guys, and then he saves one of them with, I believe, a Giant Growth. Yeah, but I got another Centaur, he lost one of his 8/8s, and I didn't take any damage. I still have 2 creatures that are able to block flyers, and suddenly everything is looking fine. Me drawing Vidugazi Guildmage even means that now he is on a rather quick clock. So I start populating, and 1 or 2 turns later I'm able to attack with my 3/3s after he has played some low impact cards. So after having almost lost this game and being ready to concede, basically, a nice sequence of draws allowed me to claw my way back, and the populate spells in particular were key to do so. So I think this gave you a very good idea of how this deck won. They were very close games, I have to be honest, and there was some unlucky draws, some lucky draws, as is usual. So this was a hard-fought battle, and basically at this moment is where the top 8 draft started.